I didn't become wealthy by accident. I became wealthy when I disciplined my mind to obey my purpose. Discipline is not about restriction, it's about direction. It's not punishment, it's power. And the moment I understood that, everything changed. The richest minds I studied had one thing in common. They did what needed to be done, especially when they didn't feel like it. They didn't rely on motivation. They built systems, and they became stronger than their emotions. You can't build wealth with a mind that's always distracted. You need clarity like a blade, focus like a fire. Not just sometimes, daily. The mind wanders, it rebels, but with practice, it begins to listen. And once it listens, it begins to serve. Discipline begins in silence, in the decision to control your first thought of the day. Before the world speaks, you speak. You decide who you are, you decide what matters, and your mind learns to follow the voice of vision, not the noise of emotion. I trained my mind to show up whether I felt ready or not. Wealth isn't built on how you feel, it's built on what you repeat. Discipline is consistency without applause. It's doing the work before it's easy, and staying long after it's comfortable. Success doesn't start with effort, it starts with structure. I created routines that aligned with my purpose, and I followed them when it was raining, when I was tired, when I was doubting. Because my future wasn't built on convenience, it was built on commitment. I stopped reacting and started responding. That's discipline. Not being pulled by every emotion, not chasing every impulse, but thinking, then acting. And in that space between reaction and response is the life most people never reach. Now comment this: discipline is how I become who I was meant to be. Say it with belief. The world is noisy, but your mind, it can be trained. And once you master it, nothing outside of you can stop what's inside of you. Discipline didn't make me rigid, it made me free. I no longer wasted energy deciding what mattered. I knew, and that knowing gave me energy others spent on hesitation. Discipline isn't the cage, it's the key that opens every locked door in your life. I noticed how the wealthy built discipline like a muscle. They didn't wait for the perfect day, they trained in the chaos. When the world was noisy, they focused. When emotions rose, they breathed. Discipline wasn't just a tool, it was a way of being. The mind wants comfort, but wealth lives in the opposite direction. Discipline taught me how to sit with discomfort long enough to learn from it. Every time I resisted the urge to quit, I earned something no one could take away: inner control. The average person changes direction every time discomfort appears, but those who build wealth, they stay, they show up, they refine, they delay the impulse and decide from principle. That is where power is born. That is where you rise. When you train your mind, you're no longer a victim of moods. You no longer ask, "How do I feel?" You ask, "What needs to be done?" That shift alone can turn a decade of distraction into a destiny of achievement. I didn't need to be extreme. I needed to be consistent. The wealthy don't work harder. They think clearer. They don't chase motivation. They live by intention. And that intention is guarded by mental discipline, not emotional hype. Most people never win because they keep starting over. Discipline says, keep going, keep the promise you made to yourself yesterday. That promise becomes your identity, and your identity is what builds everything. Now write this in the comments: discipline over mood, purpose over impulse. If you can say that daily, you'll start thinking like the wealthy. They don't look for shortcuts. They sharpen their focus until it becomes who they are. I disciplined my environment as much as my mind. I removed distractions. I curated what I consumed. I surrounded myself with clarity, because your environment either supports your future or strengthens your excuses. And I had no time for excuses. Discipline taught me how to say no, not out of fear, but out of focus. Every yes carries a cost, and the wealthy are not rich because they do more. They're rich because they choose better, less noise, more precision. Most minds are scattered, But a disciplined mind is a weapon. It cuts through confusion. It turns 10 hours of wasted time into 1 hour of meaningful action. I didn't work more. I worked with more control. And that made all the difference. Discipline taught me to delay the dopamine, to resist the urge for instant gratification. I began to enjoy the wait, to respect the process. Because everything I wanted came through consistency, not convenience. Discipline is delayed desire in service of destiny. I gave my mind commands and followed through. That's how trust is built. Most people don't trust themselves because they keep breaking inner promises. I kept mine, daily. And that self-trust became unshakable confidence. I used discipline to create rhythm, waking, working, thinking, reflecting. My day wasn't left to chance. It was built with intention. The wealthiest people I met lived by design, not by emotion, and their structure created freedom. I didn't wait to feel like it. I acted as if I already did. The mind catches up to the decision. Action leads emotion, and the more I acted with discipline, the more I became the man who no longer waited for better days. He built them. Now comment this: I act on command. I build with structure. That's how discipline becomes identity. It's not a rule, it's a rhythm. And the more you honor it, the more wealth becomes a byproduct of who you are. I stopped chasing variety. Discipline isn't about new, it's about mastery. I repeated the same moves until they became second nature, because mastery isn't doing many things, it's doing the right things until they become automatic. I became a student of structure, not just what to do, but when, how, with what energy. The rich don't just do the work, they align it, and that alignment multiplies results. Discipline turns scattered motion into focused achievement. When distractions came, I didn't resist them, I replaced them. I filled my time with habits so aligned with my future, distractions lost their appeal. That's the power of discipline. Not just saying no, but having a stronger yes. The wealthy don't rely on discipline once a year. They build it into their daily identity. They show up when it's raining, when it's quiet, when no one is watching. That's when identity is shaped, not in the spotlight, but in the silence. You don't need more motivation, you need more structure. Discipline taught me how to protect my energy. Not every battle deserves your attention. Not every emotion deserves a response. When I guarded my mental space, I got clearer, and clarity made every step more powerful. I stopped waiting for the perfect plan. Discipline said, start with what you have, move now, refine as you go. Perfection is the enemy of consistency. And the rich know, done with discipline beats perfect with procrastination. There's a confidence that comes from discipline no one can fake. It's quiet, steady. You don't need to prove anything. Your consistency speaks for you, and that quiet power becomes magnetic. People feel it, even if you never say a word. Now comment this: discipline is my quiet power. You don't need to shout, you just need to keep your promise. And when you do, day after day, discipline turns into destiny. Wealth isn't far. It's one decision repeated again. I realized wealth wasn't about how much I did, but how well I could focus. Discipline trimmed the excess, it cut the noise. I worked less, achieved more, and felt clearer than ever. Because a disciplined mind doesn't chase, it chooses. Most people think freedom is doing whatever they want, but the wealthy know freedom is the result of doing what must be done consistently. Discipline feels hard in the moment, but it buys you time, clarity, and peace for the future. I made discipline my lifestyle. I didn't visit it when I was in the mood. I lived in it. I let it shape my sleep, my thoughts, my actions. I stopped calling it effort and started calling it alignment. And from alignment, abundance arrived. The disciplined never need to announce they're focused. Their results speak louder than any promise. The rich build invisible habits. They don't flash their routines, they repeat them. And repetition builds wealth in silence. Discipline doesn't shout, it compounds. There's a kind of self-respect that discipline builds. You don't negotiate with your mind anymore. You lead it, you command it, and it starts obeying you, not out of fear, but out of practice. That is power, quiet, true, lasting power. There's a kind of self-respect that discipline builds. You don't negotiate with your mind anymore. You lead it, you command it, and it starts obeying you, not out of fear, but out of practice. That is power. Quiet, true, lasting power. There's a kind of self-respect that discipline builds. You don't negotiate with your mind anymore. You lead it, you command it, and it starts obeying you, not out of fear, but out of practice. That is power. Quiet, true, lasting power. Now comment this. I don't need motivation. I have structure. Let the world chase feeling. You build your foundation. And when that foundation is set, the future becomes something you don't fear. It becomes something you create. Discipline showed me that excellence isn't occasional. It's a rhythm. It's the choices no one sees, the effort no one applauds, the early mornings, the quiet decisions. Wealth is built in the shadows long before it shines in public. I didn't need more energy. I needed more direction. Discipline gave my energy a place to go. It focused my fire. It turned chaos into clarity. And once I had that clarity, I didn't need permission to move. I moved with purpose. Success is rarely loud. It's the quiet click of repeated action, the decision to stick to a standard when no one's watching. The rich don't chase excitement, they build foundations. And discipline is the concrete beneath their empires. I stopped needing the world to understand my habits. I wasn't building for applause. I was building for alignment, and that alignment gave me a level of peace that distractions couldn't compete with. I didn't fit in. I focused. Discipline doesn't impress the crowd, it builds the future. I taught my mind to follow commands, not cravings, not just with food or time, but with thoughts. I asked, does this thought serve me? If not, I dismissed it. Discipline starts there, at the gate of your thinking. The wealthy are not more talented, they're more trained. They've rehearsed their routines until their identity. You don't rise by force, you rise by habit. And every disciplined day you stack becomes the bricks of your next level. The more I honored my discipline, the more I respected myself. And self-respect changed how I moved. I didn't sabotage, I didn't delay, I didn't break my word. Because once you've built internal trust, you refuse to betray it. Now comment this. My habits build my identity. You don't need to shout your goals. Just keep your habits strong. Let the work speak. Let the structure hold. That's the way of those who rise and stay risen. I stopped chasing balance and built discipline instead. Balance can shift, but discipline holds steady. It gives you a center to return to when life pulls in every direction. I didn't need everything to be perfect. I needed to stay aligned. People often ask, how do I stay motivated? That's the wrong question. The right one is, how do I act when motivation is gone? Discipline is that answer. It replaces the need to feel with the choice to commit. I chose discipline when no one believed in me, when no one was watching, because belief isn't what fuels discipline. Discipline is what builds belief. Every time I honored a decision I made, I earned a deeper trust in myself. Discipline is your defense against the chaos of the world. When your mind is trained, it doesn't get pulled by every trend, opinion, or feeling. It stands tall, and when the world spins, you stay still, focused, unmoved. In a world full of noise, discipline becomes your silence. I built rituals, not routines. Routines are things you do. Rituals are who you are, the way I rise, the way I speak to myself, the way I prepare my space. These rituals weren't about performance. They were about identity. I stopped hoping for the right mindset. I trained it. I chose the same thoughts daily, thoughts of purpose, of focus, of future. And like any muscle, repetition made those thoughts stronger than the doubts that used to lead me. I saw discipline as love. Love for my future, love for my purpose, love for the people counting on me. Discipline isn't punishment, it's devotion. And when you live like that, success isn't pressure, it's proof. Now comment this: discipline is devotion to my future. Let that be your anchor, not motivation, not force, but love. Love for the life you're building, the peace you're protecting, the greatness you're growing into. I stopped negotiating with my lesser self. The version of me that wanted to snooze, delay, make excuses. Discipline reminded me daily, I am not my urges, I am my decisions. And each decision was either feeding my future or starving it. I learned to respect time, not just big chunks, but the hidden moments, the 5 minutes before a call, the hour before the world wakes. I mastered those spaces, because that's where winners are built, when no one is clapping and no one is watching. Discipline gave me direction when the vision was unclear. Some days I didn't feel inspired, I didn't feel strong, but I still acted. Because discipline doesn't ask how you feel, it asks who you're becoming. And I never forgot the answer. You can't think like everyone else and expect to live differently. The rich don't entertain thoughts that betray their destiny. Discipline isn't just action, it's awareness. And the more aware you become, the less you tolerate your own distractions. I noticed that mental discipline leaked into every area of my life. How I ate, how I rested, how I spoke, how I treated people. The same standard followed me everywhere. Because when you raise your standard, you raise your results. The world keeps offering comfort. Discipline offers legacy. One gives you a moment, the other gives you meaning. I chose meaning. And every time I did, comfort became irrelevant. I didn't come to feel good. I came to become great. I replaced wishful thinking with daily execution. The more I moved, the more momentum I gained. Discipline created movement, and movement built belief. I no longer hoped for success. I became someone who expected it. Now comment this: discipline isn't what I do, it's who I am. Because when discipline becomes identity, you no longer need reminders. You no longer need to start over. You've become the person who follows through every time. I learned to delay praise. The world loves results, but discipline loves process. I stopped seeking recognition and fell in love with repetition. Because the richest rewards come not to those who move fast, but to those who stay long enough. I became dangerous the day I stopped needing permission. Discipline gave me that edge. I didn't wait for clarity, I created it. I didn't wait for the mood, I moved regardless. That's when fear lost its power, and I stepped into mine. Every time I finished what I started, I earned internal credit. Invisible deposits in my self-worth. That's the unseen wealth discipline builds. Confidence you can't fake, and certainty no one can steal. When others rested on yesterday's effort, I used today to build tomorrow. That's how the rich think. They don't repeat wins, they raise standards. And those standards are enforced not by pressure, but by daily discipline. I stopped looking at discipline as a grind. I saw it as a gift. The more I showed up for my future, the more peace I felt in the present. Because there's no anxiety in alignment. When you know you're doing what's right, rest follows naturally. Discipline doesn't remember who you were. It keeps building who you're becoming. Discipline removed decision fatigue. I no longer asked, should I? I already knew. My day was decided by the version of me who had a future to build, not the one who wanted to stay comfortable. That's how clarity compounds. I trained my mind like a craftsman trains his hands, with repetition, with attention, with respect. And the more I honored that process, the more I became unshakable. Not because life got easier, but because I got stronger. Now comment this: my discipline is louder than my doubt. Because your discipline doesn't just build results, it builds identity, and your identity becomes your compass. One that no fear, no failure, and no fatigue can erase. I didn't eliminate distractions by force. I replaced them with devotion. The more committed I became to my vision, the less tempting the distractions were. Discipline doesn't always require resistance. Sometimes it only requires real purpose. I turned my life into a training ground. Every challenge became a rep, every setback a test, every small win a signal. It's working. I wasn't hoping anymore. I was documenting discipline in motion, and success was the result of staying consistent. There's a sacred confidence that only comes from doing what others avoid, not because it's loud, but because it's rooted. I didn't just talk like the rich. I thought like them, acted like them, until eventually I was one of them. Most people build their life around comfort. I built mine around conviction. Discipline taught me the difference between temporary pleasure and permanent peace. One fades, the other frees. And I chose freedom every single day. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be consistent. I repeated the same behaviors until they became non-negotiable. Not because I had to, but because I couldn't imagine living any other way. That's when I knew discipline wasn't effort anymore. It was identity. I taught myself how to sit in silence, how to breathe instead of react, how to pause before speaking. That kind of control isn't loud, but it's powerful. And that power changed how I moved. Through life, through business, through resistance. Discipline didn't make me cold. It made me clear. I became more intentional, more generous, more efficient. Because when you stop wasting time and energy on what doesn't matter, you have more to give to what truly does. Now comment this. Discipline isn't heavy. It's my liberation. Let the world chase comfort. You chase character. Because once your mind is disciplined, your path is yours. And no noise outside you can shake the strength within you. I stopped letting circumstances decide my pace. Discipline doesn't ask the weather. It shows up anyway. I acted with the same fire on good days and hard ones. Because consistency isn't born from ease. It's built through intention. I built systems so clear, my emotions didn't get to vote. I didn't ask, do I feel like it? I asked, is this who I said I'd become? And when the answer was yes, I moved. That's how you build a life you can trust. I built systems so clear, my emotions didn't get to vote. I didn't ask, do I feel like it? I asked, is this who I said I'd become? And when the answer was yes, I moved. That's how you build a life you can trust. When your future becomes sacred, discipline becomes simple. I no longer gave my energy to things beneath my mission. I didn't argue with opinions. I didn't explain my every move. My time and focus were too valuable. That clarity, it came from discipline. It wasn't ego, it was economy of thought. I didn't fear failure, I feared inconsistency. I knew that every time I broke my rhythm, I delayed my results. So I honored the plan, even when it was boring. Because repetition is the gate you walk through to enter greatness. People ask me how to feel more powerful. The answer is simple. Keep the promises you make to yourself. No affirmation, no applause, just daily proof. That's what turns pressure into peace and fear into fuel. Now comment this. I honor my future by how I act today. This is your foundation now, not hype, not intensity, just rhythm, quiet, solid, strong. The same discipline the rich built now belongs to you. I saw discipline as a form of faith, faith in who I could become, faith in the process. I didn't need proof, I needed consistency, and the more I showed up, the more proof I created, not for others, for myself. I didn't discipline myself to impress anyone. I did it because my purpose demanded a sharper version of me. Discipline wasn't a rule, it was a reflection of who I was willing to become when no one else believed in me yet. I stopped escaping thoughts, escaping effort, escaping responsibility. Discipline faced it all, looked at the mess, owned it, cleaned it, rebuilt it, and in that process, I became someone fear no longer recognized. Discipline doesn't just build success, it destroys your former limits. I measured growth by how quickly I could return to alignment, not perfection, but recovery. Discipline gave me a path back every time I slipped, and that path was paved with grace, not guilt, with strength, not shame. I taught myself to love the work, not the result, the process, the grind, the stillness, because once you fall in love with the process, success can't escape you. It has to catch up to your consistency. Every habit I practiced wasn't about now, it was about legacy. Discipline thinks in decades. The rich live today like their future is already watching, and I did the same, because I knew someone else would live in the world I built. Now comment this: discipline is my legacy in motion. Let that remind you, this isn't just about goals, it's about who you become in the process, and who you become will echo through everything you touch. I stopped identifying as someone trying to be disciplined. I became disciplined. My actions matched my identity, and the moment you stop trying and start being, the gap closes. You stop searching, you start showing up. Every decision I made aligned with one thought: would my future thank me for this? If not, I let it go. That simple filter rewired my focus. Discipline made my path clear, not easy, but undeniable. I realized wealth isn't reserved for the gifted, it's reserved for the grounded, for the one who can say no, for the one who keeps showing up, for the one who honors structure more than emotions. That's who wins. Discipline showed me I didn't need more, just better. Better habits, better thoughts, better standards. I stopped expanding my to-do list and started deepening my commitment. That's how I created results that stuck. The rich don't do more, they do what matters most, better. The greatest gift discipline gave me was emotional stability. I didn't react, I responded. I didn't spiral, I breathed. I didn't crumble, I adapted. And that internal strength became my advantage in every room I walked into. There's no louder statement than consistency. No louder confidence than calm repetition. The rich don't speak louder, they move with quiet certainty. And that certainty is only born through disciplined alignment. I used to chase energy. Now I manage it. I don't spend energy, I invest it. Discipline taught me how to protect my mental space like my life depended on it, because it did, because it does. Now comment this: discipline is how I honor the life I want. Let that truth echo inside you. You're not forcing change, you're becoming it, slowly, daily, without noise, with depth. I became more dangerous the more predictable I became. Not to the world, but to myself. I knew what I'd do. I knew I'd show up. That kind of self-reliance can't be bought. It's earned. Through discipline, through devotion. I stopped being loyal to how I felt. I became loyal to what I said I'd do. That shift cost me comfort, but gave me clarity. I traded instant pleasure for lasting power. And that power, it now works for me. Even when I rest, I stopped needing to feel inspired to live inspired. Discipline didn't make my life rigid, it gave it rhythm. A rhythm that kept moving, even when motivation went silent. A rhythm that held me when doubt tried to take over. You want to change your life? Start by keeping one promise to yourself, then another, then another. That stack of kept promises becomes your new identity, and that identity doesn't dream. It does. Discipline didn't happen overnight. It happened in quiet decisions, in early mornings, in full presence. I didn't rise by accident. I rose by design, and that design was laid brick by brick through self-respect. I didn't build wealth just in my bank account. I built it in my behavior. My habits became assets. My mind became a machine. My thoughts were no longer scattered. They were focused, because discipline was no longer a tool. It was home. I didn't avoid temptation. I transcended it. The more I honored structure, the less appealing sabotage became. When your mission matters, the noise loses its flavor, and all that's left is clarity. Now comment this: I lead myself, I follow through, I finish, because that's who you've become. You're not waiting anymore. You're not hoping. You're building, quietly, powerfully, with precision. Success didn't show up with fireworks. It showed up as peace, as mental control, as silent wins. I stopped looking for dramatic breakthroughs. I lived in the process, and the process rewarded me. I became someone others could count on because I learned to count on myself. And that's rare. That's leadership. That's discipline. A standard so high even your emotions start rising to meet it. When I felt tired, I rested with purpose. When I felt distracted, I returned to intention. When I felt lost, I returned to routine. Discipline didn't remove my humanity. It protected it. It gave it a container to thrive in. I didn't discipline my life to be perfect. I did it to be prepared. And when life tested me, I didn't panic. I responded because my habits were rehearsed and my mind was no longer reactive. It was ready. If I could give you one gift, it would be this: the belief that you don't need more, you need mastery. And mastery isn't sexy. It's silent, it's boring, it's beautiful, and it builds the kind of life motivation could never give you. Like this video, if it helped you shift something inside, and share it with someone who's ready to stop restarting and start rising, quietly, consistently, like the disciplined few who eventually lead many. And remember this: discipline isn't the path to greatness. It is greatness in motion, in silence, in you. I am Napoleon Hill, and this is how the rich build discipline that lasts.